Welcome to another episode of Times Square Kung Fu. I am your host, Frankie Balboa, aka the Shogun Supreme.
And I'm Peter Glugowski, Associate Editor over at Flixus.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at 88 Films' newly released Long Arm of the Law box set, including parts 1 and 2 of the saga.
Yeah, and me and Peter had a interesting outlook on both of these films. And, you know, before we get into this episode, I would like to give a shout out to MVD Group, who provided us with this amazing box set for a review for the sake of you guys. And, you know, I appreciate them a ton, seriously, because they've been looking out for me for a very long time. And as you see on my table back here, I got a lot of review stuff they sent us to check out. And this is the way we do things here. We're gonna give you guys a little context to watch these films, because it's highly important. Because again, me and Peter had a long discussion about watching these two films. We're gonna show some highlights of the films, then talk about part 1, then 2, and then go into the picture quality, sound, unboxing, and extras. So let's get into this. So before we talk about these films, there's something I highly recommend, and we usually don't mention this when it comes to audio commentary or extras or even book essays, but I highly recommend reading the booklet first from Tom Cunliffe, who deals with Hong Kong politics and a writer for Hong Kong films, and he's also a professor, right?
Yeah, at UCL.
Yeah, he's also a professor. And the thing is, with this film, you need context. It might not gel with other people, and me and Peter are gonna talk about that when we review these films. But during this period in the 80s in Hong Kong, that's when the political shift and ties started happening between the relationship between, you know, British Hong Kong and mainland China. We started seeing the fears of the handover appearing a lot in their films. And when this film came out, the first one came out in 1984, I believe, Peter, right? In 84, right?
84, yes.
Yeah, during this time, you started seeing more modern-looking action films dealing with these themes. Because, you know, we had Hong Kong Godfather in 85, and we had Shaw Brothers film, and we also had Man from the Gutter, which is not the same as Long Arm for the Law, but it has a similar tone and look to it when it's like gunplay heavy and what you guys are used to doing the heroic bloodshed started becoming popularized by John Woo. And the book is really, really well written. You get a little history on the director, Johnny Mack, because I said Anthony Mack. You know?
Yeah, earlier. Talking Captain America who directed this.
Yeah, and then you had his brother who did the second one, but you get an insight a little bit on his career and also the political climate and the shift and how important the first film is in the Hong Kong industry, especially during that decade. Now, with that said, we're going to talk about part 1 of the Long Arm of the Law series.
So the first Long Arm of the Law movie, it's set at an undisclosed time, I believe 1984 when it was filmed, and it deals with a ragtag group of criminals who are on a jewel heist that requires them to go to Hong Kong. They're from mainland China, and they're looking for better opportunities to make money in the only way they know how. And as you'll quickly learn with this movie, it's a descending series of events that keep getting worse. Like, it depicts a group of people who are pretty deplorable, so you're not supposed to be rooting for them necessarily, and every situation they get involved in, something goes wrong, and the stakes get upped because now like the cops are after them, or they just lost a buddy, or a couple of civilians got knocked off. You know, that's the whole gist of the movie, is that this criminal life is not good.
Yeah, and but you've seen, you know, all this transpire. Something very interesting when you told me as a film as a whole, because remember, we have two different perspectives on how we saw this film, and you know, I'll chime in later, but let them know, like, what do you thought of the overall film of part one?
Yeah, before you gave me that context from the essay, which I didn't have available when I was watching it, to me, it's just like, I don't really, like, what is this movie about? I kind of had some inkling that it was maybe the tensions between Hong Kong and the mainland due to the handover, but since it's in '84, I thought that was a little too early for them to be discussing it. So to me, it was just, these are some of the most inept criminals, and they're all jackasses, and they just do really bad things. And not that a movie can't have a villain as a protagonist, but to me, they're not very interesting people. You know, there's never moments of character bonding, really. We don't get insight into why they feel this is the life they need to do, or even why are they trying to go into Hong Kong and then come back. At that time frame, a lot of people were trying to leave Hong Kong because they believed it was going to get worse after the handover. And this movie is kind of a reverse of that, which is at least interesting now that I have some context on it. But overall, I didn't enjoy it when I watched it, because to me it just felt kind of aimless. One thing you said later too is that it's almost like an episode of Seinfeld, and that it's about nothing. You know, there's no real plot other than they want money. So I enjoyed the action scenes, but we'll get into that discussion later. Overall, I just didn't really like the movie.
Right, and you know, it's been a long time since I've seen these films, because like I told you, I discovered part 1 and 2 because I saw 3 and 4 first many moons ago. And when I saw the first one, me being a child of immigrant parents, and I was telling you this, I enjoyed the first film a lot. And there's a lot of cultural stuff in this movie that resonates with anybody who's going for, you know, the American dream, or anything that gives people that come from a third world country, or something that is very dictatorship run, or just your country's in ruins. You always see as these main city, these main hubs, as the land or the city opportunity. So when you see the beginning of the film, when they lose one of their buddies, and when they land in Hong Kong, they get corporate Americanized food, McDonald's, pizza, and they're doing a prayer like, yo, here's this American steak, here's this Italian pizza. And that's something that, you know, my parents came for, to have access to stuff like that, you know? And seeing these bunch of thugs doing this thing is very reminiscent of the way I was raised during the crack era with my uncles and everything in New York City, where this is what they know, and this is how we're gonna get by. And once we get by, we could use this money to start our businesses, either bodegas or barbershops. So seeing how this film has more insight of, you know, the mindset of coming to a new society, trying to get rich, or like 50 Cent, I told you 50 Cent's album cover, Get Rich or Die Trying. You see that in this film. And it's not more about relationships in this film, it's more about, this is what we gotta do, and it's showing you, you know, hopeful, because the stuff they're doing here in their country, they're gonna get killed, even for like petty crimes.
Yeah.
Same thing what was going on in my country. Like, if you get caught thieving, we have a saying, just chop his hand off. And this is not even done by the police, this is done by civilians. You get stoned to death, shot, or, you know, the machetes. That's our main weapon over there, you know, because we're a land of farmers in the Dominican Republic. So seeing them do this stuff and having the conversations of just, you get insight of the criminal ways in Hong Kong and how they're going to get stuff done. But I also see from your point of view, because like I mentioned the whole episode of Seinfeld, because the film starts like this with a crazy entrance into Hong Kong. You see one crime and then it just goes flat. It goes up a little bit, flat.
Yeah.
And talking more about the dreams, the aspiration, and the way things changes of, this is the land opportunity Hong Kong, to this.
Yeah, that
where
ending
the action
is really ridiculous.
the action is insane. Like it gets really, like you said right now, it gets really ridiculous. Something that do very well in this is when you see somebody get shot, the camera zooms in to show the brutality. You see a guy's ear get shot off, it zooms in. A cop got shot dead in the nose,
dead in the
and
freaking
it zooms in. And there's one scene in particular that you really enjoy. Which I was seeing it again. I was like, oh, crap.
We're not going to show a clip because it's too amazing to really spoil that. But they're trying to interrogate their main informant their main partner about the informant they were supposed to kill. And they're like, you set us up. So they throw him in a car and tie him up, and then they light the friggin' car on fire. So I thought, wow, this dude's dead. You know, whatever. They then have the camera inside the car as it's burning. And I was like, what the hell? And like, you see the window blacking. You see the guy, like, windows blacking, he's sweating. And I was like, what if they screwed this take up? This dude would just be dead. It is totally wild. It is an amazing display of that bravado that Hong Kong stuntmen and actors had. Like, they were just built differently.
But overall, you know, the more I think about this film, the more I love it. I love part one a lot, and Peter, you find it to be just.
I'm sure over time, and you know, I said this a little to you, but like, your views on films change as you age and you learn perspective or grow, or even just the mood you're in when you watch it. So I wouldn't take me saying I didn't like it as well, this movie's really bad or whatever. It's just, I lack some of the context to fully understand it, and I'm sure maybe the next time I watch it, maybe I'll enjoy it more.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is when I spoke to Peter yesterday, because we were watching the film part 2 together, a lot of stuff that I mentioned to you is the stuff that's in the essay, and I read the essay today at the time of this recording. So I was like, oh wow, you know. Again, you know, I grew up in New York City. I spent a lot of time in Chinatown. A lot of friends from Hong Kong and China who are like brothers to me, so I really knew some of the stuff. But also being, you know, a child of immigrant parents is very similar, you know. But overall, I really love the first film, and we're going to go into the second.
You didn't have one.
Later, Johnny Mac's brother Michael Mac directed Long Arm of the Law, which I guess this movie's calling Saga Part 2. And it's not a direct continuation, although it does take place after the first movie. It even starts with the cops going over footage of the last heist or whatever the heck they did at the end of the first movie. And it's kind of a continuation of the themes, which is common with a lot of Hong Kong sequels. It stars a brand new cast of characters who at least have a couple of notable actors. We didn't mention this for the first movie because the people playing the protagonists aren't really big actors in that sense, and they're not well known even to this day. But in part 2, you have Elvis Choi as one of the main characters, and Kirk Wong shows up at some points. Xing Foyan is in it too. So there's more notable faces here. And at least to me, this movie seems more character-driven. So there's more moments of the characters bonding, and you get a motivation and understanding of why they want to do this. The setup is slightly different in that these guys are going to go to jail, but they're given the chance to skip that jail time if they go undercover in Hong Kong. So right out of the gate for me, I understand, you know, it's not just we want to get rich and Hong Kong's the only place. You know, they're being blackmailed into doing this. And over the course of the story, they bond, they, you know, commit some crimes, but they're not trying to get into murder and all that until their hand is forced. And from there, again, like the first movie, it's a series of descending events where things get worse and worse and worse until the end.
Yeah, and one thing we forgot to mention is like both movies, like the actors are former Red Army soldiers. You know what I mean? So you could tell where they got the training
Oh yeah,
from.
yeah, right.
Yeah, and all that. This one amplifies more the subtle themes you see in the first one with the corporate,
Yeah, yeah. As I said, you mentioned a
food
lot of
chains.
that while we were watching it. There's a scene in particular where they're eating food outside of a 7-Eleven, and you even said while watching it, that's the kind of stuff you can't get in mainland. Although, I mean, you can nowadays, but
Yeah, and they're, place where you actually see the brand in the beginning, eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you see, oh my God, look at the stuff we can get over here.
yeah. And they don't focus on that either. They're not. Well, actually, I think one character says, "You want that Kentucky USA chicken or whatever," but
Yeah, he gets really
really excited about it. But otherwise, they're not going like, "Let's go to the 7-Eleven." It's not a corporate branding like that.
It's not like Michael Bay in Transformers where you see this thing, the Xbox turn into, and the Mountain Dew and all that. It's not that egregious and stuff, but you see like, wow, look what we will get here. And I feel like if the first film had the character development of this joint, if they fused it in together, because it's something we didn't mention about the first one, and when you saw it, I haven't seen it in a while. I was in Europe. What we were discussing is that when you make villains, you got to make even the heroes of villains. You got to make it likable for you to keep watching the film. And a good example I brought up to you is like Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
Because they had that bonding, the conversations, you got to see the characters build. And you get more of that in this one. It's more melodramatic. And you see how, like I mentioned earlier, the corporate foods and the junk food, the chains, showing like, hey, this is the opportunity we have, stuff like this. But it's much slower than the first one, I believe. I think this one is a lot more slower.
It's kind of hard for me to judge that because I kind of thought the first one was slow, but it definitely, the action is paced out more, and it's a different type of action too. The first movie is very gun heavy because there's a scrappy criminals, so they're not getting into hand-to-hand fights, whereas this one is more of a typical Hong Kong movie in that sense. There actually is a pretty decent display of martial arts here.
Yeah, it reminded me. I remember I was telling you like, whoa, they're really undercranked this joint.
Oh,
it
yeah.
reminded me how the action looked in Moment of Romance.
Yeah.
Like it was just straight brutal. But you enjoy this one for more than the first.
I did overall, yeah. I still don't necessarily think that this is a high-tier great movie, but again, maybe I was missing the context. Regardless, I thought it was better overall because I got to understand why these characters were doing what they were doing. It wasn't just a given that, hey, we're in Hong Kong and we can break the law, whatever,
And the thing is, I told you I like the first one more, but this one was better fleshed out more.
Yeah. Even if maybe my perspective changes on the first one over time, I do think this one has aspects that are better than it.
No, me too. I agree. I like how they focus on certain things, but overall, before we get into the box set, the unboxing, the extras, and the audio quality, we're gonna do not the audio quality. We're gonna talk about the picture quality in a second. And what do you think? You recommend this box set?
At first, I would have said no. If we were just going off my initial review, we did no research at all. But yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of these movies already, just get it. But even if you're not, I think with the addition of the whole box and the essay and the special features that we'll talk about in a bit, it definitely makes this a compelling package, and the movies do represent a period of Hong Kong filmmaking where things started to change. So it's worth it for that alone.
And you also see something that was very infamous in Hong Kong is that, and emphasizes in the booklet as well, is the infamous Kowloon Wall City, aka Anarchy City.
Oh God, yeah, like especially at the end of the first movie. That it was filmed a few years before Kowloon was torn down, and man,
yeah, because
very special.
Because one of the last films that was shot was Bloodsport. That's one of the last time you got to see it because it got torn down after that.
Yeah,
a little bit after that. So yeah, I highly recommend it. is an important part of Hong Kong cinema, and I found it to be very entertaining and fascinating, at least. You know what I mean? And with that, we're gonna talk about the special features, the picture quality, and while I'm doing all of that, I'm gonna cut into the unboxing of this beautiful box set, Long Arm of the Law.
So in discussion of the disc, we're going to start with the picture quality, and right off the bat, I'm going to say this looks very, very good, but there's something with the intro of this movie where maybe it's a stylized effect. It's using footage of these criminals' rap sheets and the cops going over it, and then some footage to set the stage of Hong Kong in that era. And I honestly thought Frankie punked me. The quality was...
I'll send you the DVD.
Yeah, the quality was so bad. I was like, is 88 Films like really losing their touch? What is going on here? And we made sure to double check on the Hi-Ya stream. It looks the same there, so I'm guessing this is a source thing or maybe it's stylized. Regardless, if you're cautious at first, like, did you guys lie to me? No, we didn't. The movie looks really good after that. Once the movie picks up proper and the characters are planning their escape from the mainland, whatever, the movie looks excellent. There's great separation of colors, great depth, and overall it's just very good. This goes for the second film as well, although the intro in that one looks a little better.
But they're looking through it through a TV screen, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I told you, the film looks great, contrast levels, everything pops, and it's clear as hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's very clear, and the audio sounded fine to me. It sounded great, actually.
To me, it was a little harsh, but I think, like I just said to you, I think there's maybe something wrong with my speakers at the moment. I don't know. Everything was super loud. Jesus. But I mean, it's fine. Good. Like, it's not egregious. There's no hissing, popping, any of that nonsense. So.
Right, and no funny stuff with the print or nothing. This is a Golden Harvest film, so it looked fantastic.
And there's no media Asia to worry about.
Yeah, like usually Golden Harvest prints look amazing.
They're usually handled by Fortune Star as well. So.
Right, and now this release, of course, it's 2 discs. It comes also with the export cut as well.
Yeah, those are English audio only, and they're a little bit shorter. I don't necessarily know what is cut, but it's just something that's a nice extra, especially if you like English dubs.
And
I don't, but
oh, this is funny because we saw part 2 because I wanted to hear the English dub, but it wasn't because I wanted to force Peter to watch English dub. I just couldn't, for some odd reason, I couldn't rip the Hong Kong cut. Is because my MKV key ran out. I forgot that's what it was. So we got to watch the second film
in English,
which I enjoyed the dub
with a lot of "F you" and it's like, oh my god,
there was some funny insults. Oh, by the way, this person just died. I forgot to tell you. Bye, peace.
And there's something too at the beginning. It's like, this thing vibrates like a dildo. We were like,
yeah, it was so much emphasis on it. I freaking love it. But like we mentioned, the booklet, it has audio commentary from the famous Frank Dench, and he's gonna give you guys a lot of insight and elaborate more of what.
Yeah, that's only available on the Hong Kong version.
Cuts.
Yeah, not the export ones.
Well, I can't emphasize this enough. This booklet, read it.
Yeah, there's also on the disc. There's interviews with Johnny and Michael Mack. There's a conversation with the scriptwriter Philip Chan and action director Billy Chan. So there's a lot of good stuff going over the making of this film. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I'd be intrigued.
Yeah. And of course, the box set, hard.
Yeah.
Slip cover. And I was actually quite surprised because Fight Back to School, they didn't get a booklet or a poster.
Yeah.
And this package, you get a nice 40-page booklet, which I mentioned a bunch of times. The writer better hook me up. And it comes with a double-sided poster, but doesn't have Sean Long Moore's art. It just have both theatrical posters.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it has both theatrical posters double-sided. I always wish they gave you 2 different posters, but hey, that's just me. But overall, there's a great package. great extra and a fascinating piece of Hong Kong cinema with this release. And again, we can't mention this enough. MVD Entertainment Group. Thank you for this review copy. And guys, I highly recommend shopping with them. I know sometimes their prices are a little high compared to like other outlets, but they come through with the customer service, delivering, their packaging, and they do some very amazing sales at times. So always keep an eye out for them, especially on their social media accounts, because their last Black Friday sale, they have films for $10 and $15 because they do their own movies. So they have all the Van Damme joints they release, like Lionheart, for like $10.
Wow.
So definitely check them out. But as always, like, share, and subscribe. And until the next one, peace.